last week before the race at Michigan. The question was, could Kevin Harvick get into the playoffs? And if he got into the playoffs, could he even do anything? He was 90 points behind the cut line, more than 90 points actually, so it was a must-win situation. But after this week's race at Richmond, we might be talking about him as a potential championship favorite. That's right. Last week he got the win at Michigan, moving him from must-win to make it into the playoffs to safely in the playoffs. He had a win. He was top 10 in points, so there was really no way he could fall out of the playoffs. Today at Richmond, after going 65 straight races without a race win, he has now won back-to-back races. Harvick, his 60th career win, 46 years old. You know, Stewart-Haas Racing has not been on top of their game in the last couple of years, but Kevin Harvick at 46 years old is looking very good at the right time right now. Of course, just in a couple of weeks, the NASCAR playoffs will start at Darlington. And, you know, right now, the playoffs, that's when you want to be hot so you can make your run, go for a championship. And Kevin Harvick has decided to get hot right now. Of course, him and his crew chief, Rodney Childers, have been together for almost a decade now, since 2014. And they have won a ton of races. They have won a championship back in 2014. So they know how to get it done, but the cars haven't been there. They just haven't been there the last couple of years. It's not like Harvick has been driving poorly. Rodney Childers has been making poor strategic calls, but it's just that Stewart-Haas Racing hasn't been as competitive as they were last year, the first half of this year really. But the last few weeks, they've really turned it on. They have by no means been terrible this year. Harvick has been top 10 in the points most of the year, but the last 2 weeks, prior to last week at Michigan, Harvick had only led 13 laps. He led 30 or so last week at Michigan. This week, he led, 50, 60-something laps and really dominated that last stint. Logano led the most laps today, over 200 laps led, but Harvick was right on him before that last cycle of pit stops, and then he eventually got around him. And then Harvick, eventually came out ahead of Logano, and Chris Buescher got a small challenge from Chris Buescher, but was able to use the lap traffic to his advantage, put some cars between him and Buescher, and pulled away. Christopher Bell on fresher tires was making a huge charge, but just didn't have enough time to get there. But Harvick drove amazing today. The strategy calls were right, and even though he had pressure from guys like Chris Buescher, Christopher Bell, he was able to hold them off. And then also, he was able to, go on and pass one of the best cars all day, Joey Logano, who had led over 200 laps, just straight up on the racetrack. In Richmond, past couple of years has not had great races, not a lot of passes for the lead on track, but Harvick made it happen. And today's Richmond race was actually a pretty good race. You had the strategy side of things like we had in the spring. You had actually really good battles, like Ryan Blaney and Eric Almirola were side-by-side for like 10 straight laps. Ty Gibbs and Kyle Busch had a battle, which that could be some kind of, I guess metaphorical wouldn't be, because it's actually quite literal. But, they were fighting against each other, and they could potentially be fighting each other for who gets the 18 car. You get it? Anyways, but yes, Kevin Harvick, just a couple weeks ago, was out of the playoffs by a good margin, had to win. No one knew if SHR or if they could have the winning speed, but now they've won 2 straight races and 2 very different racetracks. And the question is, are they potentially a championship favorite now? I mean, look, Kevin Harvick, he's a Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer. He has been winning his whole career. He has been at multiple teams and, been championship contending and championship winning with one of them for both teams. You really can't ever count Kevin Harvick out. Like he said last week after Michigan, you shouldn't really count them out, because even if they're having a down year, they're having a bad year, they can show up when they want to, or they can show up and, kind of surprise the field, if you will. But, I don't think it's safe to ever count them out, and these last 2 weeks have proven that you should never, ever, ever count Kevin Harvick out, because they know how to win, and they have proved it. They have won 2 straight races now. If you told me this after what was the Indianapolis road course, I would have never guessed it. If you told me one of them, maybe I would have honestly guessed Richmond, because he finished runner-up in the spring, so it's no surprise. He was fast in the spring. They had the right strategy calls in the spring, so it's no surprise to see him up front at the spring, at Richmond. But yeah, wow. Now he has 2 wins, back-to-back wins, and it's crazy. He went 65 races without a win, and now he's won 2 straight. It's incredible. That's impressive, very, very impressive. But as I said, Some challenges late down the road in terms of, different contenders. Chris Buescher, shocking today, but RFK, they showed raw speed today. Keselowski qualified in the top 10. He was in the top 5 for stage 1, and then Buescher's car really came alive late, and he was able to pass Joey Logano, challenge Joey Logano, and Kevin Harvick for the lead late in this race, and he looked like he could potentially win, blow up the playoff bracket more than it's already been blown up, get himself into the playoffs, become the 16th different winner, but unfortunately he falls short. Let's just go through the results. Kevin Harvick, he gets himself his second win of the year, as we have said multiple times. Right time to be getting hot, as I've said. They've looked solid all year long. They've been consistent top 10 team. That's what they've been doing all year. Even last year, they were top 10 in points, I believe, but they never had that winning speed. They weren't leading a ton of laps. As I said before, Michigan only 13 laps led, which is super un-Kevin Harvick-like. They've now led probably over 100 laps over the last 2 weeks, and they have themselves 2 race wins. Those are 10 playoff points in the last 2 weeks. So Harvick, and he's going to get playoff points for finishing top 10 in the regular season standings, so he is racking up those playoff points, and all of a sudden, they may be in the top half of the playoff leaderboard entering Darlington. So Kevin Harvick, look out for him. He could potentially be a championship contender this year after having a pretty not exactly bad, but not regular Kevin Harvick season. Christopher Bell, he tried, but he was just short of that win. He was a part of that strategy that Joe Gibbs Racing was doing, which was pit about 10 to 15 laps later than the leaders on green flag pit stops, and because the tire difference was so much bigger because of the fall off and the wear, they were able to chase down and pass everyone that was in their way. Chris Buescher, Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, Eric Almirola, anyone who was there, they were able to charge up and pass them with ease most of the time unless lap traffic got in the way. So Bell was able to overcome all that, and it wasn't even really a problem. It was a strategic thing, and he was able to make almost the most of it. He made a lot out of it. He's in the top 10 of points, trying to improve his position in the regular season standings to grab some more playoff points. He finishes second, a good day for him. He has been quietly consistent this year. He had a terrible start to the year. He was like in the 20s, maybe even borderline 30 in points after some DNFs earlier in the season. But they have really turned it around in the late spring, early summer. They put together top 5s, top 10s, even a win. I think they're maybe top 5 in points now. Christopher Bell has been quietly impressive this year. Third place, Chris Buescher, one of his best runs of his career, honestly. You look at this, you look at Sonoma, 2 top 3 results that they have gotten this year that have not really been expected of them, to say the least, but they've been good at the short tracks. We saw Keselowski get a top 10 at New Hampshire. It's even not just the short tracks, it's the tracks that require more braking, like Sonoma, like a road course that they've run better at. And, today that showed. They were top 5 the late stint of this race, and they were competing for the win at some point. So, very impressive speed. The only problem is third place doesn't get you much in this format. Buescher has to win to make the playoffs, but they should still not hang their heads down. Very impressive run for Chris Buescher, for RFK. That's a great day for them, so very good for Chris Buescher. Fourth place, Denny Hamlin led a few laps there. He was up front most of the day, had a lot of speed. His home track, he finishes 4th. Solid day for him. Fifth place, Chase Elliott does not quite lock up the regular season standings or championship, but he would literally have to finish last, and Ryan Blaney would have to win the next 2 races for him to make it, or for him to lose it. Of course, next week's Watkins Glen, they basically just got to stay out for stage 1 and win the stage, and they should lock up the regular season title. So, yeah, they did what they had to do, which was get points. They were back after the top 10 most of the day, but they get up into 5th. Sixth place, Joey Logano, probably the best car all day, led over 200 laps, as I said a couple times before. Won a stage, looked really good, especially the short run. The short run, off of a restart, they would pull away 3 to 4 seconds. But then, as the run went on, it seemed like, I don't know if Joey Logano was just using the tires up or the racetrack, just once it got more, worn out or something like that, or more used and more heated up. I don't know if that did anything to his car, but Logano later in the run would just fall off a bit, and, it cost him late in the race. That's why he was struggling to hold off Harvick. He got passed by Harvick, passed by Buescher, passed by all these other guys. So 6th place is a good day for him, but he did get a playoff point, which is good because he's already locked into the playoffs. 7th place, Martin Truex Jr. It was not looking good early in the day. He was back half of the top 10, then he fell out of the top 10, then he was a lap down, got lucky and got his lap back. He passed Logano and got his lap back, but only 1 stage point on the day versus Ryan Blaney's 11 or 12. Lost a big chunk there. But that strategy they pulled at the end with the tires ends up getting only 3 or 4 points back on Blaney. He finishes 7th. The gap is bigger than it was, which is really bad, especially, I can't believe I'm saying this, especially going into a road course next week. Martin Truex Jr. is a phenomenal road course racer. He has like 6 or 7 wins, something like that, at road courses in his career. But Toyota has sucked on road courses this year. They have been horrendous at road courses this year. So, advantage Ryan Blaney next week is shocking, but Truex, it may start to get desperate here. They're still within striking distance, don't get me wrong, but it's more than 20 points. It might be even 30 points right now. 8th place, Eric Almirola. He actually had like a lot of speed today. He started in the back after a poor qualifying session, but he ends up coming back. He was up in the top 5 for a bit, but he needs a win as well. He finishes 8th, a good run for him. SHR had speed today. All 4 of their cars were in the top 10 at some point. Custer, when he was in the top 10, he had a power steering issue, and that prevented him from being competitive. Briscoe was in the top 5 before his car literally caught on fire, and they had to pit to put it out. He probably finished a couple laps down. But all 4 SHR cars were competitive today. Like, they were in the top 10. A couple of them were in the top 5. This was one of the best races as an organization for SHR, and they picked up the win. So, Kyle Busch, are you watching closely? That's a joke. Speaking of Kyle Busch, look who's next. Kyle Busch in the 9th position. Good top 10 for him. He spun out earlier in the day, got hit by Ross Chastain. It was just one of those racing deals. At first I saw Chastain hit him. I was like, oh, Ross Chastain, you've done it again. You've pissed off a Joe Gibbs Racing driver, but it was 3 wide, and, you know, things happen, and yeah. But Kyle Busch rallies back, gets himself a 9th place finish. Not a bad result for him, but honestly, considering how the last few weeks have been, it's been a good result. They've had, 8 straight finishes outside the top 10, so a 9th place finish, even considering they spun today, I think they'll take it. 10th place, Ryan Blaney. As I said, stage points. They were so important today, and he got a good chunk of them compared to Martin Truex Jr. He extends his advantage by a bit, and he did what he needed to do. He was in the top 10 most of the day. He got those stage points, so he gains a good chunk of stage points, of points overall, on Martin Truex Jr., which is what he needs. And also, it was a repeat winner, which is also what he needs. So, as long as it's not a repeat winner, as long as he gains points on Truex, he should be good. He can also afford to lose 10 points to Truex. He has a pretty good gap right now. 11th place, William Byron. 12th place, Austin Cindric. He started near the back. Bad qualifying session for him. He gets 12th. 13th, Bubba Wallace. 14th, Kyle Larson. Started on pole. Led a couple of laps, but fell off there at the end. I don't know what happened. 15th, Brad Keselowski. 16th, Austin Dillon. 17th, Ty Dillon. Really good run for him. 18th, Ross Chastain led the whole first stage. Won first stage. Then got in that wreck, and that pretty much ruined their day. Damage to the car. Ends up 18th. 19th, Daniel Suarez. 20th, Alex Bowman. 21st, Justin Haley. 22nd, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. 23rd, Chase Briscoe. As I said, was up in the top 5. Green flag stops happened. The right front caught on fire. Something about that rocker box that happened to Buescher and Logano at Indianapolis. I don't know if it's a Ford thing. I don't know what it is, but it seems to be some sort of issue. And it strikes again, and it cost Briscoe a good result. He finishes 23rd. 24th, Noah Gragson. 25th, Harrison Burton. 26th, Cole Custer, as I said, was in the top 10 for the first stage and early stages of the second stage, but power steering issues end up ruining his day, and 26th for him. It's unfortunate. He looked really good today, but I feel like that sums up their season. Tough for Cole Custer. 27th, Todd Gilliland. 28th, Corey LaJoie. Michael McDowell, 29th. Landon Castle, 30th. Tyler Reddick spun on like lap 2, and then I never heard his name again. Irrelevant today. 32nd, J.J. Yaley. 33rd, B.J. McLeod. 34th, Cody Ware. 35th, Eric Jones. He was in that wreck too, I think, with Kyle Busch and all of them. And then last, Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs, he had a mechanical problem. Making his 4th start in the Cup Series, and they had a mechanical problem. Tough scene for him, but Yeah, overall, I was surprised. This was actually a pretty good Richmond race. Richmond has not provided in the past few years, and it's been a little sad because Richmond is a fun track, and it can be a fun track, but the spring was a strategic race, which was fun, but the racing wasn't great. But this time around, it was a little bit of both. You had your strategy that was fun, and then you also had some good racing. As I referenced, the Blaney Almirola battle, Kyle Busch, Ty Gibbs get battle. Even the battle between Buescher and Harvick there, even though they weren't side by side or anything, trying to navigate the lap traffic, that was kind of fun to watch. Like a short track, you got to navigate the lap traffic. Brad Keselowski did try to hold up Harvick at one point, but couldn't quite do it. But overall, it was a really fun race. I enjoyed this race. We had some guys up front that we don't normally see, like Chris Buescher. We saw a late charge from Christopher Bell, and we saw a deserving winner. So that's pretty cool. But overall, really good race, like an 8 out of 10, I would say. Better than the spring race. Not the greatest Richmond race ever, but honestly a pretty good race, especially considering that Richmond has not been the greatest track the past few years. But thanks for watching. We'll talk about any news that happens this week. I'm still waiting on that Kyle Busch announcement. Still hasn't happened yet. I feel like they got to get done before the playoffs, but you never know. There's no way they take this in the playoffs, right? I don't know, but anyways, thanks for watching this video. Leave a like if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel for more NASCAR stuff, racing stuff, and I'll see you in the next video, whatever that may be.